The Quarantine Sessions podcast with J. Cole.
What's up?
Hey.
How's it going, Kamya?
Yeah, I think it's working.
I think it's working. Yeah, I just kind
Yeah.
of like Doctor Stranged back into form for you just then.
Yeah.
How are you doing today? So you're tuning in from India, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Bunch of Indian people joining.
Cool. And for my viewers, I think probably a lot of the people that are going to be tuning on are probably from your audience. But for people that aren't really familiar with you, we met in Bali. You're a prolific traveler. You're a
Yeah.
world globetrotter. And you're also the founder of the Indian Psychedelic Society, right?
Psychedelic Society India. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that project and just kind of give us a rundown of what it is and what inspired you to start that?
Yeah, for sure. So my journey with psychedelics kind of started out like a lot of people. It was very recreational, and I did a lot of my own experimentation. And along my journey, I was already in the path of spirituality for a long time before that. So I've been kind of on the path of spirituality for around 10 years, and then psychedelics came into my life at a later stage. And with the Psychedelic Society's kind of conscious community groups like Uber, um, or in say California or in Hawaii. And in India, what I noticed is there was a large gap because there was a lot of kind of people that wanted to talk about their experiences, that wanted to maybe go deep with the psychedelics instead of just going to Goa and coming back,
Yeah.
the next day. And that's why I kind of started it out like a community circle. So I did a few different meetups in different cities where people could just come together and share and talk about their experiences, and also ask questions and have a safe space to express themselves. And also the second component of that is also the education side, so like harm reduction, sharing information that can help people maybe to navigate if they're in a difficult space, and tying it all together with the psychedelics and the spirituality, because the fact is psychedelics is like a huge part of Indian culture and Indian history, but we've forgotten a lot of it. So
Right. There's all this historical stuff from like the Rig Veda where they talk about Soma, which is kind of the ancient roots of Hinduism, right? It predates Hinduism and it's where a lot of Hindu ideas come from. So there is
yeah.
this kind of psychedelic origin story to Indian culture in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge part. Like, so Hinduism is actually a term that was coined by the English people.
Really?
Before that,
Okay.
it was actually called Sanatan Dharma. So it's like a combination of different ways of life. And so there's like different paths. There's like the tantric path. There's like there's like the yogic path. And and so this the Somras is also part of the tantric path as well, originally. But nowadays, like in some of those like temples, they substitute it with different things, because the origins have been to a large extent they've been lost. But if you go and speak to some of these saints and some of these yogis, some of them, like, they tell you, it's like this plant that grows in the Himalayas. And I asked one person in a temple in Assam once, and I just come back from Peru, and a lot of people say that Soma is Amanita muscaria.
Hmm.
So that's been widely shared, and it was interesting because this guy, I asked him, and he's like, it's actually a vine. Um, And I was like, wow, and I don't know if this is true, of course, but you know, this was like a, you know, a really old guy in a temple somewhere. And the way he was describing it, I was like, that sounds exactly like ayahuasca.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that when you look at the kind of pantheon of the different deities and the mythology, it's extremely psychedelic. And it seems to me that the worldview of taking psychedelics from that being the foundation, the base that you're coming from, is that it's a lot more, it seems more moldable to that worldview than coming from it more from a Western mind, where like the psychedelic experience is really alien and strange, but the kind of mythology that springs out of like ancient India seems to already be extremely psychedelic. So I'm curious about what your experience is coming out of that culture and exploring psychedelics. Did it make sense for you kind of right off the bat?
Yeah, I love that question. So for me, because I grew up in the UK, like when I was in that phase of my life, I was very kind of closed. I was quite unconscious, very materialistic. But I was still quite connected with my culture. So, you know, I was learning a lot. And then I moved to India when I was 16. So for like 2 or 3 years, it was really difficult. But then I had this huge transformation where I came onto the path of spirituality. You know, I traveled all around India. I visited all these amazing temples, just like you described, you know, with all the different carvings and learning all about Indian philosophy. And so when I had some of my first psychedelic experiences, it was kind of like, wow, this feels familiar. You know, this feels familiar to me. Because I also spent 3 years, sorry, I forgot to say, I also spent 3 years in pretty much social isolationist. So I was in university, and it was after a very difficult period of my life, my adolescence. And this was when I just kind of started off in my journey with spirituality and self-discovery. And because I'd had such a tough time in adolescence with stuff, during that time, I was really, really strict with myself. So I would wake up every morning at 3. I would sit in meditation. I wouldn't have sugar. It was like basically a semi-vipassana for like a really long time. And during that time, I remember having these experiences where I couldn't feel my body, like I was floating, like I was dissolving. And at that point, I never really, I mean, I knew about psychedelics and I'd watched a lot of documentaries and read a lot, but I hadn't actually taken psychedelics externally. And so when I did come onto that path, just like maybe a couple years after that, or like a year after that, it was like that, but magnified by a huge amount. So it was kind of like I already internally had the intuition to be able to navigate it. And it didn't feel like some really big, crazy, I mean, of course, there has been many experiences where it has been like that. Yeah, to answer your question, I think in the beginning, it was, I think it definitely eased my journey into the world of psychedelics, for sure.
Well, there's a lot of controversy, I think, in the spiritual community around psychedelics. A lot of people don't advocate it, or people say that it's diversive against the path of spirituality, that if you're going to pursue meditation, you shouldn't take psychedelics. Even people that actually have been very influenced by psychedelics say these kinds of things, which is strange to me. It's a little hypocritical, but I think that they're still locked into a kind of older paradigm where there's a large stigma around it. But it sounds like you actually got into psychedelics through spirituality. And myself, I had a similar path because I was, my curiosity for psychedelics was provoked by Ram Dass and by Aldous Huxley and a lot of these other kind of spiritual teachers, rather than it being more recreational, or it being, rather than my spirituality and my curiosity about spirituality being provoked by psychedelics, it was the opposite for me. And it sounds like it's similar for you. So your exploration of psychedelics was actually part of your quest for greater spiritual understanding, rather than it leading you to spirituality, but I'm curious, how do you feel that those two subjects relate? You know, are psychedelics spiritual? Can psychedelics be used to further one's spiritual development? You know, what does spiritual development even mean? That's a question in and of itself. But I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are about those two subjects and how they interlink.
Yeah, for sure. So like just like you described, you know, psychedelics kind of was always something that I had the opportunity to take many times, but I waited because, you know, it was something that I kind of felt was important and needed preparation. And like you described, it was part of essentially this quest, like just how my quest has been for traveling the world, just how my quest was in the academic world. And I'm astrologically, I'm a Scorpio and 4 planets. If I, you know,
Oh,
I
wow.
keep going deeper and deeper into things. And psychedelics has definitely been one of those things which, you know, that I loved and that really had a huge impact in my personal growth journey. Now, at the same time, like, I feel like the intersection between psychedelics and spirituality is, for me personally, has been in the case where, like, I've had many experiences which didn't really necessarily translate into any change in my life. And they didn't necessarily say, you know, they were temporary experiences where I thought, you know, I've got a bunch of notes written on my phone that don't make sense. And it was hard to translate that, you know, into growth. But over time, you know, learning about, you know, how to integrate my experiences and like the right, you know, tuning more into my intuition with this rather than being more carefree. I've noticed that it starts to, you know, it's had more value. When it comes to the, you know, the that kind of, I think that debate, you know, I lie on both sides of the spectrum. I think after a certain point, a lot of people tend to get lost in the psychedelic world and they feel they need to take psychedelics in order to experience something, when in fact you are the psychedelic, right? You produce these chemicals endogenously in your brain. And so I feel like for many people it's valuable because they've really forgotten, they've really lost touch with their spirit. You know, they've really, you know, they may also be suffering from trauma, which shuts down those parts of your brain and doesn't allow you to, you know, you're essentially scared of experiencing yourself. And so I think that's, you know, we're seeing so much research in psilocybin benefits for like PTSD and so many other things. And so, yeah, I think it's like it's an amazing tool. And I wouldn't say that it's like, okay, like psychedelics are, you know, wrong in the path of spirituality or anything like that. You know, like everything, it's a plant. But I think that people like really need to tune into their intuition if it's something that's calling them at that point of time, or is it something that they're just doing for the sake of it. And I think that makes the difference between, and then at what point do you feel that, okay, you know, like, do you want to let it go? So, you know, not necessarily permanently, but, you know, just in order to experience that world within yourself, just naturally, without, you know, without the need for a tool.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's kind of a hierarchy of needs, and spiritual development is sort of more towards the top. And what a lot of people do is they kind of go at things backwards, or you can have a lot of psychedelic experiences and start having these realizations about the nature of consciousness and reality, but they're neglecting their worldly life, you know, and maybe they're like their finances, their health, their relationships aren't in order. And I think that there is kind of like a there is like a hierarchy, and in Buddhism and in a lot of other cultures, they don't really make a distinction between there's like this part of your life that's spiritual and this part of your life that isn't. The work that we're doing in the world, in our normal mundane lives, is a spiritual practice, and it's really important to tend that so that that can give you a solid, firm foundation that then you can grow from and then use that to leap off of to have these higher explorations of consciousness. And another thing that I think is kind of a misnomer when it comes to psychedelics is that fundamentally all they are really is a tool, and they should be regarded in that way. And I actually had a conversation with a friend about this yesterday because she was telling me about a bad trip that she had. And I'm not a fan of the term bad trip, because I think that you can look at things objectively, and the experiences that arise on psychedelics, it's just data. It's data that is insights into your mind and into consciousness and into basically the mythological landscape of the collective unconscious as well. It can sometimes probe much deeper than just on a personal level. So if you have a frightening experience, if you have a disturbing experience, that is just another aspect of your mind which is coming to the surface to be looked at, you know. And the purpose of psychedelics is not to give you a pleasant experience. The purpose of psychedelics is not to have fun, although that does happen sometimes. It's a way of probing more deeply. It's an instrument and a tool to be able to explore the mind and to explore consciousness, and it should be regarded as such. And I think that into spiritual explorations, and there are so many stories from so many influential spiritual teachers, such as Ram Dass, where psychedelics had a major impact because they were used as a tool to explore consciousness. And a lot of the delusions in our consciousness, such as the existence of ourselves as a separate entity and the kind of ego identity masks that we wear, are stripped away. And this can really help somebody to uncover greater spiritual truths. But it does indeed need to be integrated later on. And that is an essential component of the psychedelic experience, which a lot of people overlook. And then you have people that just kind of keep going back over and over and over again without implementing many actionable steps in the real life that will produce some kind of tangible result or change.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's like, you know, it's been such a big big component of my learning journey as well. You know, the whole giving myself the time and not plunging myself into experiences again and again without the time needed to sit and just be unobserved, essentially.
Right. Actually, if you have a meditation practice before you explore psychedelics, you're probably going to be better at having that objective frame of mind where you can look at experiences that are arising without getting too caught in them. Because it's important to realize that no matter what happens, and a lot of really fascinating things occur while you are on psychedelics, you are fundamentally just kind of tripping out. And it's the same thing. That's like a fundamental Buddhist tenet, which is no matter what happens in general, no matter what meaning that you bring to an experience, you're just tripping out. Like whatever arises in your mind while you're meditating, don't get attached to it. It's just a thought. And it's the same kind of thing with psychedelics, where it's like no matter what experiences arise, whether they're beautiful and transcendent or they are challenging and disturbing, don't get attached to it. It's just phenomena that is arising. So I'm grateful that I already had at least 5 years of meditation experience under my belt before I started exploring psychedelics, and that I came from it from already having a little bit of education and having read some Buddhist books and stuff like that, because it gave me a good map to be able to navigate those otherwise very alien terrains.
100% relate, because I think that's been so, you know, so useful, especially in those moments where you're kind of on the edge and you kind of may feel like you're about to lose it, or you know, you're a little bit you might be kind of tumbling, and even maybe if you, like you described, you are in a space where it's not all rainbows and butterflies, where it is difficult, you are going through that the darkness, and you are confronting the darkness. And in those moments, like, I can't even tell, you know, just like the inner voice that, you know, that guides you at that point of time, will be able to just sit and breathe, and like you say, observe and witness, is like, it's like the power, you know, it's the power to be able to swim and not sink, essentially.
Absolutely. Somebody asked in the questions, they said, what about random thoughts when you're meditating that don't let you concentrate? I think it's really important to be objective for the thoughts that arise. And the attitude is one of non-reactivity. So if thoughts arise and you go, I hate these thoughts, and then you try to like do something about it, you try to push them away, that just makes it worse. And then before you know it, you're caught in it. Really, the trick is you let the thoughts arise no matter what they are. You see them as just being thoughts. They're just like little bubbles that arise on the surface of your consciousness. You witness them, and eventually they pass away. And that's why it's important, if you're meditating, to have an object of consciousness that you're focused on, whether that is visualization or a mantra or your breath, that you can just notice when you get caught in thoughts and then bring yourself back. And absolutely, that can be a very helpful tool for navigating psychedelic experiences also. And I actually have a friend, he's got an Instagram page called Tam Integration, and he teaches a class specifically that's meditation for psychonauts. That's really cool, which teaches these kinds of tools and stuff for people that are wanting to explore psychedelics. But yeah, like being able to bring yourself back to one point of concentration or a still frame of mind can be really helpful when the psychedelic experience becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. And I've also found like grounding tools like rapé have been useful in those circumstances as well, where, you know, sometimes like, you know, especially when you're in an environment, because psychedelics, because they blow your field so open, like you're so open to everything. And in those circumstances, so I think, and also having like the energetic protection, the intention, you know, a lot of people think that, oh, like, you know, visualize a white light or visualize a blue light, you know, it doesn't make any difference. But we don't realize that the astral world is like, it's real, and the psychedelic world is real. And it's like, it's an energetic world, you know, we create it within, we create it like, you know, mind manifesting, you know. So having that, that kind of like anchor can be like, you know, really like that protective intention for yourself, for your body, for your field, and having that anchor where, you know, you're not being too swayed by potentially external forces, is really useful as well. Because I've heard so many stories of people like getting entity attachments, or, you know, picking up someone else's stuff when they're tripping, because they're so wide open and they haven't like protected themselves. And that's why I love it in festivals when you see people burning Palo Santo on the dance floor. It's
Right
like
on,
the best. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's amazing how much of an impact, if you are in those psychedelic spaces, something as simple as lighting some Palo Santo can have. Like sometimes, or like holding a crystal. Sometimes that's really all it takes, you know, to kind of feel safe again. Which is, I think, like that's probably, but I think fundamental to having a good experience, and a good experience meaning one that you're going to come out more healed from and less traumatized, is feeling safe, having a feeling of safety. So being in an environment where you feel safe, being around people that you can trust and that you feel safe with, making sure that you are able to take care of yourself in whatever way is needed, or having somebody there that can help you with that stuff. Yeah, and these are all I've definitely learned through my own experimentation, kind of the hard way, and having a lot of experiences where I wasn't that prepared, where I didn't have a clear intention, where I wasn't in the best environment or the best mindset, and I've learned that way. So I'm sure you have too, and that's probably one of the reasons why you feel so passionate and called to this kind of work, is because of the kinds of mistakes that you made and trying to help prevent that for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And just knowing the potential of psychedelics to, you know, help towards, and especially during this time of humanity, where we're really needing to, you know, there is this huge fear paradigm, and we're really needing to kind of reassess our lives, to introspect and really essentially discover, for the people that haven't, is to discover the spiritual world, which is, you know, which is their world, their inner world, and connect with themselves again. And so I think that especially with the benefits that it can have for people that are suffering from depression, or carrying long-standing trauma, just knowing that all of those potentials exist, and also knowing how reckless it can be and how destructive it can be, is just like, so I feel, and especially in India, because, you know, there's not much in the way of education, or you know, in the West, like there's a lot of there's so many amazing organizations, there's so many amazing integration therapists, and I think they even have a course now in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. so it's really encouraging to see the progress. And so yeah, I feel really awesome. What a small way to be a part of that in some sense.
Yeah, and I see that. Yeah, I agree. I think that psychedelics are one of the tools that will help people transition in this time. I think that the world is facing a lot of major difficulties and a lot of crises in ways that we haven't before. And I think that they're all crises of consciousness, and that a shift in consciousness is really what's necessary in this time. And psychedelics are one of the tools of many that can be used to help create that shift in consciousness and help people awaken to new visions of reality and new ideas about how to live and new values. You know, we need a culture that has different values, because the values in Western culture haven't really been serving us. And all the kind of karma that's compounding right now and all the circumstances that are arising are just demonstrations of that. And they're indicators that we need to try a new way of being, and we need to adopt new lifestyles and new values and new worldviews in order to be able to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, with the environment, with each other, with our families, and with ourselves as well. When are we going to stop chasing money, fame, and power and start being happy with, just being happy with ourselves, being happy with nature?
I'm curious to ask you something, because having been situated for the past 6 months, I had plans to travel, you know, like a lot of people did. And you are quite a traveler yourself. And with this whole kind of COVID situation, all my plans to travel got thwarted, and I've been in the same place now for 6 months. And it's actually been really good. It's allowed me to really take a lot of time to work on things that I otherwise would be distracted from, and to really have a lot of time to build and to grow and to introspect. And one of the things that I've kind of realized in this time is that my seeking through traveling is kind of in some ways a result of a lack of contentment, of just being present where I am. Like, I'm always looking for something more, looking for another experience. I got to go to this place. I've never been here. And I'm curious kind of how you feel about that.
I feel personally attacked.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, I'm joking. No, but I love the question. Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, I mean, talking about that kind of seeking, which can be sought in the world of power, it can be sought in the world of money, it can be sought in the world of fame and fortune, but it can also come through seeking spiritual experiences. And it can also come through seeking experiences of connection or travel, and it can kind of sneak up on you in really subtle ways. So I don't know. It's not really a question. It's just I want you to riff off that, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I've had several, you know, it's funny. So when 2017 started, right, I've been traveling for a year. And I was like, okay, you know, I've been traveling nonstop. It's time for me to slow down. And I put in my New Year's resolutions. I'm going to, you know, take it more easy. No, sorry, that was 2018, sorry, because I've been traveling for 2 years. And then suddenly I was like, hey, why don't I just go to Japan? And then I ended up taking a whole round trip around the world. And then that was 6 months gone. And then the next 2-3 months were, you know, Europe and psytrance festivals. And then it was Asia and India. And then 2019, I was like, yeah, this is the year. This is the year I'm going to take it slow. I'm going to focus on my YouTube, you know, stay more, you know, try and ground a bit, you know, find a stability. And I attempted it, but again, it just turned into a big, let me go here, like you described. And so for the time period I was in, I feel like everything is so aligned. You know, it's I really had this like feeling that 2020 was just going to be some really big year. Like, it was going to be maybe the Mayans call it the end of the world. But I felt in my personal journey it was going to be, I'd kind of given myself this deadline where, okay, at least by 2020, you know, it's a nice round number, I'm going to essentially get my life in order, or gain some stability rather. But the traveling journey in and of itself took me. You know, I was online tutoring a lot, and you know, I started social media, which has been a great outlet for me, and just like doing that also, and writing, and all of that combined, it was like, yeah, it is really beautiful. It was really beautiful. But like you say, I did lack stability. And this sense of like always needing more, that is also like a major part of me. Is like, if I expand into something, I keep going into it. And so, like you say, like, at what point do you say, how do you find that balance? How do you say, okay, like, traveling and exploring the world and stuff, but also creating a foundation. And I feel, that's a major part of this year for me. And probably moving into next year is building that foundation, building it with my health, building it with my work, building it with, I'm not sure where I'm going to live or anything like that, but everyone just moves to Bali at the end of the day. So, but yeah, I think it can be like that. And I think a lot of people, even with spirituality, like you described as well, and that's why I think it's so important to like keep listening to like different perspectives, and keep mingling with people at different parts of their journey, because I think if you're open to the answers, the universe will speak to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about following the whispers. And I feel in my own travel journey that I've been really guided, and it's been a lot of following the whispers, getting hints about certain places, feeling called to go certain places. And traveling is definitely one of the ways to really broaden your perspective. Where for me, a lot of the concepts around, say, nationality don't really exist as much anymore, because I'm always surrounded by international people, and I'm always in other countries. And so it's really broken down this idea of me belonging to one particular place, and being, like, always in contact with people of other cultures and learning a lot from them. And that's something that you spoke about recently, and I really enjoyed that. You were talking about, I think you were talking about white supremacy in travel, and how that relates to like colonization, and only kind of interacting with people that are from Western culture. And that was something that I thought was really interesting, and I would love if you could expound on that, because for me, being in Bali here, there are a lot of people, it seems, that only kind of stay within the clique of the expats that live here. But the Balinese people are amazing, and their culture is amazing, and there's a lot that you can learn from them. And I've been really inspired by their culture, and it's been a real privilege to be in it and to observe it. And I'm curious just what your experiences have been traveling, and if you wanted to talk a little bit about that post that you made and how that relates to your experiences.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a really important area to be thinking about within the spiritual community as we start to grow, and as we start to kind of, like you say, a lot of people are becoming expats and stepping into the digital nomad life and building this lifestyle in Asian countries, people who are from the West. I think that, when we grow up in the West, we kind of grow up in this mindset, this kind of pre-programmed mindset of superiority, superiority with our finances, superiority with our education. And I know I was like this, when I came to India at the age of 16, I was educated in a very good school. I had the best life. I was a little spoiled because I was an only child. And I looked down on everything. I looked down on the people. I looked down on my culture. And, this remnant still remained, like, subconsciously. And over, the time of, really, like, going through my own journey and connecting deeper with the land and connecting with my own heritage, it's actually the opposite. It's I've noticed that they're actually a lot more intelligent here. They're a lot more in tune with the higher ways of consciousness and ways of thinking and experiencing life in the community. When places like Bali, what I feel is that Western people, when they travel, they often look for places where they're going to find the things that they get at home. So they find the place with the best cafes, the best accommodation. And I think it's really beautiful what has been created in conscious communities. But like you described, it does become like a bubble. It does become like a clique. And what this does is it creates the same kind of system of economic segregation, of cultural segregation, where the locals are having to adapt to the tourists instead of the tourists adapting to the locals. And the reason that this is so threatening is because if you look at how places like Hawaii have been shaped, if you look at how places that have had huge influence by, the US and westernization, I was horrified when I went to Cancun. I was like, what is this? It's not, I didn't feel like Mexico. I only felt like I was in Mexico when I went to Yucatan. Like, I never felt like I was in Mexico when I went to Tulum. Because it's the same thing. I mean, except it's just for rich people. Well, more rich people. And in Bali, I feel like, the conscious movement is really great. And in Thailand, it's really beautiful. But I think in Indian culture, right, one of the biggest, one big part of the practice is is humility, right? It's like learning and giving back to the land. So I think 5 years from now, we don't want to see Bali becoming like Cancun. Like, we don't want to see Bali becoming like Hawaii. And in order to prevent that, I think that we, as when we're having these discussions around white supremacy, is really think about how we can start learning more about the culture and integrating locals, instead of us like creating a community and then like dominating outwards.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's parts in Bali, like Canggu, for example, or Seminyak, which are already basically like being in Cancun, I think Ubud still has a bit of a connection to Balinese culture, especially on the outskirts of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of my favorite experiences, I've traveled pretty extensively around the island, and I like going into parts that I call deep Bali, where it's like you're in parts that are untouched by Western culture, and those are remarkable. And the culture is so beautiful, and it's amazing to me that there are so many people that come here and they don't make any attempt to explore that or to experience it or to learn from it, because it's remarkable and it's absolutely beautiful and it's very unique. And those experiences of a worldview that's different and those experiences of a culture that's dramatically different really impact the way that you see reality. It makes you realize that kind of our one way that we see things and the worldview that we've been brought up in, it's not the only way. There are people on the planet who see the world in a dramatically different way than we do. And that reality is as real as our reality. And, it really, it's kind of mind blowing when you start to open up to those new ideas and new ways of seeing things.
I totally agree. It's like my Guruji said the other day from India, nice phrase, that when you grow spiritually, you actually start to integrate, you have a multitude of perspectives. And, if you're a spiritual person, you're not going to be fixed on, you will integrate like all these different, because you are the same consciousness reflected in these different bodies and these different beings. And so, and I feel like definitely when traveling, especially like making an effort to even just maybe learn a few words of the local language, or sit and try and that's why I love these kind of like things like Workaway, where you can go live with a family and like really integrate with the culture and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that idea of my truth is true and yours isn't is a big problem right now. Especially, it's like all the major issues that are coming up right now. For example, the coronavirus thing. There are so many different conflicting perspectives, and it's creating so much division between people based on the way people see things. And I think that us growing into a place of maturity where we can hear other people's perspectives, even though they're different than ours, and be able to honor their worldview and try to empathize with it and put ourselves in their shoes is really important right now. Because otherwise we're just going to have more and more division, and then we're going to have more and more suffering. We're going to have more and more destruction on the planet. And I really hope that, I think that there's many paths that we can take right now, but I really hope that we choose to take a path where we are moving towards greater harmony and greater union and greater unity and more understanding, and farther away from division and separatism and conflict, which is where we've been for who knows how long. It's why we're in the position that we're in right now.
No, totally. And I was actually going to write a article on this because in the beginning we saw the COVID situation really brought us together. You know, it was like people in France are singing on the balcony and people in Spain are playing techno from the balcony, and it was like this really beautiful family global community type of feeling. And over time, you know, it has disintegrated a lot. Like you say, there are all these different perspectives. You know, do you wear a mask? Do you not wear a mask? Should it be mandated? Should it not be mandated? And me personally, like, you know, I don't, I'm not really stepping out of the house much. So I don't really know what the situation is in those parts of the world. But like you described, you know, these, I mean, everyone is coming from a place of essentially self-protection and self-care. You know, the people that like trying to wear the mask are, you know, trying to look after themselves, look after the health of their family in case, you know, someone, if they're in crowds and they're in contact with people, right? And then the people that don't want to wear a mask, perhaps maybe, you know, they feel that it's limiting their oxygen, or there's so many different reasons, and and everyone has, like, everyone, I read also online that you know, there was a girl that had been abused in childhood, and so covering her face made her triggered that experience again, and gave her anxiety attacks. And I was like, you know, really, like, there's so many different perspectives and situations, and just being able for us to, like, okay, I'm gonna do what's right for me, and speak up, you know, if I think that something needs to be, you know, like, we need to tell people to being irresponsible or something, but also understand where other people are coming from as well, because otherwise we just end up hating each other and not progressing in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's, I mean, even to bring it back to the topic that we were talking about before with psychedelics and spirituality, it's another divisive uh, concept. And like, you know, I spoke recently with Noah Levine. He's a Buddhist meditation teacher, and he comes from a recovery perspective. He was a former drug addict. He works with a lot of people in recovery, so he's really against the use of any substances. You know, but I think that being able to still, like, somebody who isn't in favor of psychedelics as a spiritual growth tool, and somebody who is in favor of psychedelics as a spiritual growth tool, to be able to have that conversation and honor each other's opinions and respect it without being too attached to one particular way or not, because all of life is an experiment. Nobody really knows, you know, like, nobody knows. We're all figuring it out together, and we're just sharing our experiences. And I think it's highly presumptive and a little arrogant to assume that anybody really knows the right way to do anything. So yeah, it's a weird time. But I like to believe that what's going on right now is precisely what our species, our world, us as a collective needs, and that it's helping aid us in a greater awakening and to calibrate ourselves to come into greater alignment, which is ultimately the goal, I guess. Just to let you know, we have about like 10 minutes left.
All right, cool. Should we talk about your course?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about the course. Yeah, so for those of you who are watching this through Kamya's channel, I'm an artist, and one of my greatest passions is helping other people uncover their creativity. I've been a professional artist now for about 10 years, a psychedelic artist, and I created this online course. It's a 12-week online course called Unleash Your Inner Artist, which is geared towards helping people come into the most empowered, creative version of themselves. So we've created a course. It's myself and 12 other world-class, amazing facilitators, and we have based the structure around The Artist's Way, which is an amazing book. It's miraculous in the way that it works. And the object of the course is to help people become the artists that they were born to be. So if you're somebody who has always wanted to pursue a creative lifestyle, whether that is as a painter, as a photographer, as a digital nomad, as a writer, whatever it is, but you felt blocked in that for some way, this course is just going to dynamite those blocks out of the way so that you can really step into that version of yourself. I think that at the time that we're in now, it's really essential, because as structures are shifting and dissolving, and traditional means of employment are changing, we need to rely on our creativity more than ever to be able to create the lives that we actually want to live in. And if you're too dependent on a system that is outdated, you're going to have a lot of struggles. So I think that this class could help people to gain valuable tools into their creativity to be able to help navigate the circumstances. And for today only.
Connection. Okay.
You got it? You're back? Okay, cool. Yeah, for today only, you have a link on your profile that people can go to, and there's a discount to sign up for the course. And I would love to have, I'm sure that your audience is awesome, and I'm sure that all the people who are watching this right now are really cool people, and I would love to have you come on board the course, and it's going to be totally amazing, and I'm so excited. And it starts in just 1 week, so there's really not a lot of time to delay. So if it's something that you're interested in, it's like after this week, there's not going to be another chance to do this. And so I really urge people that if they're interested to sign up right away before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially for people who, may already be in the art world, and find that, a lot of people find that they're unable to really like turn it into their full-time thing. They're unable to monetize. You've got so many world-class artists who are living their passions full-time. And I've had a look at the module structure. It's really, really detailed. So I encourage you to take a look. I have got a link in my bio. And and we're gonna jump onto the Psychedelic Society page and gonna do like a really quick rundown of the course as well. So you're welcome to join there. Jake, is there anything else that you share about the course, and what can people hope to achieve after the 12-week period?
I guess it's similar to live coaching with myself and these 12 other incredible artists. We have Chris Dyer, Paul Masvidal, amazing world-class famous artists. And I think to do like live coaching with any one of these artists by themselves with like thousands and thousands of dollars just to have the ability to learn from them. And given that we've packed these 12 different facilitators and myself together and to have the ability to interact with them, it's like the price is just like a fraction of what we should actually be selling the course for. And to me, it's a no-brainer to want to sign up for it. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going through the structure that was laid out initially in the Artist Way book by Julia Cameron, which is a kind of creative recovery course. So going through the course, we're going to enable people to recover their creativity, and we're going to be discussing every single week all the different subjects that are in the book with these world-class artists, and also have one-on-one time with all the students to talk about the process, to be involved in a community that's doing it together, which I think is really important. So there's a lot of community support there. And so what somebody can hope to get out of it is by the end of the 12 weeks to have made tangible, actionable steps towards them living their dreams of becoming an artist, and to have the guidance of these world-class professional artists to help them achieve that goal. So it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited, and I'm going to do it too. I'm going to be taking the course, and I'm sure I'll learn as much as any of the students. Like even somebody, I wouldn't consider myself like very blocked creatively, but I'm sure I still have more to learn and more to work through, as I'm sure we all do. And it's just deeper layers of the onion, and like deeper layers of realization, like what traumas we may experience at a certain point, what voices, what entities do we inherit from other people based on some little interaction.
The inner critic.
What'd you say?
The inner critic.
The inner critic, exactly. Yeah. And just to realize like where these things come from, and that it's not you. And we're going to like go into the depths of our minds and pull out those weeds that might be like lingering and just blocking us from being as creative as we can be.
And that's everything, right? Because it's like they say that you are your biggest friend and your biggest enemy. So I think, and what a lot of people they sell courses like, okay, like get rich and make money like this online, But this inner work is like the first step, you know, to be able to, because it's you know, you have to work with yourself. You have to and unleash the biggest potential that you can. You know, I think I've seen my life drastically shift after I've done this type of work. And like you said, it's always more work to do. So yeah, I'd highly encourage anyone watching to check that out. And we are going to jump on the Psychedelic Society of India page and go through it really briefly as well. So you could check that out as well.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, getting rich isn't necessarily the subject of the course, but it could be a byproduct if you're a passionate and talented artist for diving fully into that creative path. And I think that when you are really pursuing something that you love and that you're passionate about, it does attract abundance in an incredible way. That could, you know, it's not really a guarantee because that's not totally what the subject of the course is about. And it's more about spiritual fulfillment and creative fulfillment. But these are all professional artists, and myself included, who have worked a long time as a professional artist, giving hands-on guidance, being available to answer questions.
Yeah.
If you
That's
are
really
trying to make it as a professional artist, but have had issues with that, and are available to help you workshop that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Awesome, Kamya. Well, do you want to hop onto that live now with the Psychedelic Society?
Yeah,
cool.
For sure.
That sounds great. Okay, let's do that. Well, thanks to everybody for watching this.
Should we just on the comments?
Yeah, let's on the comments for a sec.
People
can say what they thought about this conversation. But yeah, so just like one more time, if people are interested in that course, there's a link on your page, Kamya, where people can check it out, and there's a special discount that's only through Kamya's profile.
Yeah, please check that out in my bio. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I think cool. So let's just start on the other page, and then I'll share it on my story.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Everyone.
That was really fun. Much love, and see you soon, Kamya.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
All right.
Bye.
The Quarantine Sessions podcast with J. Cole.